I have like constant migraines, my throat's swollen, my gums feel swollen, like listing out the most random list of and the first question was the exact medication I was on. Are you on this medication? It's like,
Wow.
holy
That's
shit.
amazing. I didn't know you were stubborn.
Send prompts, not nudes. I just want to AI some shit.
Can you imagine playing a generative, like endless video game on your phone?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty soon we won't have to imagine. Pretty soon we'll be like prompting our own games.
I mean, like how far is that away? But I asked that because it's like we're talking about, vibe coding and enterprise adoption for coding, which I met with some folks in banking this week, and it's still like they're not letting it happen. They say that, but we know it's happening.
Oh yeah, this is probably a really cool conversation for a guest that I'm thinking of around security and AI, right? Like the more you say no, the more people are going to get around it.
Yeah.
Right.
You have to, at a certain extent, you have to offer an option or give people an acceptable vehicle, especially for something this impactful.
Yeah. You cannot hide from it. Nope.
But like what's interesting is what happens when like enterprises hop, skip, and jump right over vibe coding into generative interfaces and generative software. And that's a thing.
Good luck.
Can you imagine like trying to convince your risk officer at a financial institution? No. The interface is AI. It generates it.
I mean, you're going to have to convince him that it's, more valuable that way, right? Like that's like, I think financial services is interesting because it's just it's a very hard place to innovate like that at the large firms, right? All they do is manage risk, and they have process and rigor to make, extract value from risk. And so if you're going to alter that process and you're going to say it's generative, like in a completely dynamic way, that is probably counter to the business model, unless it's in like a domain of like customer relationship or like business acquisition.
I don't know. I think that's an interesting point, but I think of it this way. Can you make a generative model deterministic and get repeat output?
Can you explain why?
But then it's not a generative interface anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I can. Can a risk officer? Probably not. But I can guarantee you that I can take a LLM and I can make sure that it only puts out what I tell it to put out every single time, no matter what. I will take that bet all day.
Yep. And you can do it, and then you got to explain it to the people who make the decisions, and they have to understand it.
Yeah, it may not actually be worth it. It's a weird space.
It may not be worth it. I think probably the area that we're talking about has the highest value in worth. There are very few people that can actually quantify risk, and even when you quantify it, it's so big, so massive.
So, do you think AIs could be better at that? Because I think
I know it is.
The ways.
I can guarantee you right now that
if you get into like long tail risk and the ways that humans mess up risk assessment, right? AI is trained on humans. So it's tuned and overseen by humans. Even if you set a model and you're pretty confident that it's going to make good judgment in that space, I'm not sure that is necessarily any better than a human. It just has different biases.
Well, but it has the ability to think more laterally instantaneously.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so because I think humans are really like from the risk side, like you pick a small silo, you can go pretty deep, and you can connect dots. There's just the problem with risk is there's so many different dimensions. Like it's almost impossible for a person or a group of people to sit down and sort of rationalize and connect the dots. Does AI do that perfectly? Probably not. Could it do it
gets
better?
You closer. It gets you closer to alignment faster. I think that's the key. Like you can take a table of executives and risk officers and bring them closer together far faster than if that wasn't there. Will it solve it? No. Could it solve it? Probably, with the right amount of time and right amount of investment. But like I think the conversation is really around what are all my peers in industry doing at this level? What is the risk exposure? And how do I calculate that in a way that I can translate it to the problem I'm trying to address right now? And if I'm spending more money than my peers are to solve a problem that has less risk, then I'm not appropriately applying my prioritization from a risk mitigation standpoint. And I think when we're talking about risk, especially, I mean, what is security? It is risk. It's like risk mitigation, right? It's a control for risk. Your models are going to be able to mitigate more risk faster than a person just because they can do data faster than a person can. So even go ahead, James.
At the very least, they'll be able to present more comprehensive information
Oh,
to the human who is making the decisions if they don't trust the AI to.
Yeah.
I don't really feel that that's the right number. I think it's more like a 3 out of 5.
Yeah, there's
A
a lot
4.
of gut feels. There's a
Yeah.
lot of
Well,
gut
why do
feels.
you feel that way? Well, in my experience,
Mhm.
LLMs don't give a fuck about your experience.
But
You know,
but then I think
though,
to Randy's
I think
point,
there's
they're
still some
only
blind spots.
yeah, to Randy's point, also they're only as good as your data. So if you have
Yes.
really bad data at your company, and let's say you knowledge graph that, right? Now you've got instant access to all these
that
different
data.
risk factors across the organization, but those risk factors are crap or not right.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The one of the things that I think about a lot, and I don't feel like the risk community has adequately adjusted to, is over reliance on AI in a lot of different domains, right? Because we can vibe code, we do, right? Because it's going to make these risk decisions, we're going to let it. We're going to downsize. We already are downsizing significantly because AI can do all these things, and arguably it's better, right? But there's still, I think, a risk in the delta of like, how do you know at any given time that it is actually better? Because there's not that same level of rigor of ensuring that the AI is, risk aligned and measured and evaluated. The model trainers are doing it. People who build the software are doing it. But like the consumer, they like get a tool that can like, take my risk team of 10 down to 2. Yeah, sure. I'll do that all day. And then like somewhere down the line, it's got bad data. Or it's trained and biased in a situation that, and again, it's the same problem as people, right? So this is not like AI has introduced this new thing, but it's definitely going to, I think, accelerate this tendency we have to rely on experts, where now the expert is the AI, and it's still could be flawed.
Well, but I think it's kind of it is gray. We're not going to get to it is this, it's not this, like mentality, right? And that's what risk is. I think that's the uniqueness of what makes one of the tools that we built a while ago, uncertainty, so unique. Is it's a mixture of Monte Carlos, a large amount of industry data that we collected and shoved in there, and it's very easy for it to take key points out of a topic and like turn that into a Monte Carlo and apply that to logic. And even when you get to a conclusion at the end and you're like, you know what, I don't know, let's add 5 more parameters, like let's get more data, and you keep adding and adding and adding, and there's no way that you can do that at a table full of executives and risk officers to get to that answer that fast. You just can't. And I think it's and in most areas, just like coding, it's about the acceleration, and humans still have to act as the filter. Like we still have to make decisions on whether to use it, whether to apply it, or whether it is sound. But
we are still the conductor.
Yeah, but I think like unfortunately, we'll go back to the gut feeling, because I think that when you have a level of subject matter expertise in an area, I tell you how a mobile app should be built? No, I can't. It's not my area of expertise. I've never done it before. I'm learning way more than I've ever thought I would ever learn because of what we're doing. But it's just like, I'm not going to confidently walk in and be like, this has to happen this way, and I know it has to happen this way, and the model's wrong, because I just don't have that subject matter expertise. I will use another model to even to challenge that model. But if you ask me, insider threat, and I get an answer from a model, I don't have to like I'll know very quickly on whether that model is accurate or not without having to go back and reference a bunch of information. I can literally go, no, that's 50% of the equation. We also need to think about this. And what I've kind of seen with prompting, and I think this goes back to like one of our earlier conversations about mental plasticity and like lateral thinking, is a really good prompter is very lateral in how they prompt, because even though I'm talking about insider threat, I may reference like data protection or the SOC or fraud in how I'm prompting the AI, because sometimes niche conversations like insider threat are not well trained or deep subject matter expertise in the models. And I really think what OpenAI is about ready to do with GPT-2 and the new offering they just opened up, which we applied for, is the subject matter expertise training. So they're looking for startups that are trying to train in government, healthcare, banking, which I was like really happy we hit all three all at once. So I definitely wrote a nice little expose on all of those. But they're trying to find like companies that are going deep in those areas that have founders that are experts in those areas, because that is they've reached that point where they know, like, if we want to make these models, all of them, better, we have to start training them specialty for that area. And I think it was it Minstrel? What's the new MOE that came out that's really good? It was announced this week. I can't remember, but essentially that's what they did. They took a bunch of 7 bills and they subject matter expertise trained all of them. And it's something like 20, I want to say 20 or 20-ish of those 7 bills all strapped together with subject matter expertise. And with like our 7 bill that we're training, it makes a lot of sense to me. Like that you can outperform a 4.0 and get close to an 0.1 with, much smaller group of models that are like, and it's really not even that those models are doing a ton of output. They're just helping add that expert like role or focus or challenge.
Mixtral.
Yeah. I played with a little bit of that one, and I was pretty impressed on like how you could ask key terms. Like I think that's one of the first things I noticed is very, very niche terms in industry or acronyms. Acronyms are a real fast one.
What did you do with acronyms with it?
So military acronyms are a nightmare because military, government, and they're all the same acronyms, but they all have different meanings depending on what department or what organization or what military or part of the DoD. So when you start to go in, which actually we're in the middle of training something, so we got to see it firsthand. Like, and you ask it a question like, "What is ACI?" And it answers, and you're like, "Nope, that's not it." But as soon as you just change one word before that ACI question and put Army, it's Army Counterintelligence. Like that's all it takes. Just a little bit more weighting in one area, and it knows what that acronym is. But if you give it nothing, it's gonna do its best to make a really good guess. The funny part is sometimes its guesses are hilarious because these things don't exist at all. It's just like, I have no clue. I've never heard of this acronym. The Air Force Office of Special Investigations, AFOSI. There were special forces. There was special, or what was it? Air Force Operations, a special intelligence. It was really, really trying. I could smell the smoke.
Yeah. Well, no, that's cool. I mean, it's I think we talked about before that the magic of putting models together is really like an underappreciated wonder of the world. Of ensemble models in machine learning has always been a trick to get like a lot of different perspectives. Maybe you understand it, maybe you don't. The way the machine sees the world is different, but mixture of experts seems to be the way forward.
I think it's going to be a combination of fine-tuned models with live data access, meaning key terms, documents, living libraries that are updated based off of industry or organizational knowledge. Those living document repositories are accessible by the subject matter expert and bespoke to that subject matter expert. And as long as, like back to James's point, that data is maintained and curated, those models are going to essentially be enterprise level experts accessible to the entire enterprise at any time. And it's the same conversation that I pretty much I see us having constantly. Like, what's the first thing to do if you're trying to do LLMs in your environment? Like, data democratization for anybody who has a bunch of like documentation, policies, legal, anything that just sits out there in a repository of, PDFs or Word documents or PowerPoints that people have to go search. That is like the instant win, easy way to get value out of any implementation. And I'm still blown away that that's a thing that hasn't just proliferated through every company.
How your company can become super prompters without knowing it.
Right.
Well, you don't even have to become super prompters at that point.
Right. Nobody wants
Because,
to, right? Like, you don't want to be a better prompter. You just want better solutions.
You just want right data.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like all this vibe coding stuff is like, yeah, it's fun learning the tricks about how I've got to go in now and comment every file that I don't want it to freaking edit. But actually what I wanted to just do is know the difference.
Well, but this goes back to something that I think we hit on a couple podcasts ago. What is the real value? Like, not just the outcomes. I think the outcomes are absolutely what is going to change people's minds this year. But like, let's go back to the real like impact to the world right now. LLMs are providing data to people without subject matter expertise at scale that we can't even fathom. We probably won't even know like how wide and how impactful this reaches. And we now have, somebody put a statistic out there. It was like 1 billion extra coders or something stupid. Like, if you can touch an LLM, you can code. Congratulations, you're a coder. And people are making like, and it's like, it's so accessible, even on social media. It's like, hey,
people are making, they're diagnosing illnesses, they're buying property, they're, every aspect of our economy is being touched by the advanced knowledge. It's just like the internet, right? But at a much bigger scale, or like the printing press before it, right? Like, the level of expertise is coming down, the agency of individuals who want to use it is going up, and the ripple effects of a society that was designed for that old way, as it figures out how to adjust to a world in the new way, creates tension and all sorts of fun.
Well, speaking of the medical thing, I had a personal experience.
Mm-hmm.
I was on a medication that was kicking my I didn't know it was a side effect, and the side effects were all so different and so weird from anything that I would have associated with like a medication side effect. I put it in Perplexity. First prompt was like, "Oh, are you taking this?" Like, "Yes, I am." It's like, "Oh, you have this." I'm like, "Wait, that's every single side effect all in." Like, wait, what? I literally messaged my primary care doctor. I'm like, "Hey, is there a chance that I could have this?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, it's actually kind of common."
Okay.
And I'm like, he's like, "Are you feeling all right?" And I'm like, "No, I feel like I'm dying." He's like, "Don't take that anymore." but like, I'm stubborn as I would have probably gone to hospitalization before I would have stopped that med.
Mm-hmm.
I literally probably would have, like, Nicole would have had to take me to the hospital, ER, and then we found out I had that if it weren't for a little tiny prompt asking not even the right question, just being like, I have like constant migraines, my throat's swollen, my gums feel swollen, like listing out the most random list of and the first question was the exact medication I was on. Are you on this medication?
Wow.
Holy
That's
shit.
amazing. I didn't know you were stubborn.
I like to say determined.
There you go.
All right. Well, I think that was a good conversation, guys. Nice couple topics we hit on. And,
all right.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
probably a good point to wrap it up then.
Yep. That was do we want to give do we have anything to close? Oh, wait, let's give we were supposed to talk a little bit about email and calendar. Do we want to hit that for another time?
We could probably hit that for another time if
Okay.
we wanted to. Yeah.
You know what we should do? We should start having ads. Break up the conversation with ads, but it's just us reading an ad written by us or by Aiden or something.
Well, so
this segment was brought to you by the Canvas file replication.
Me and Justin were around just like talking about like the whole psychology of like why people think things are important.
Mm-hmm.
And we were joking about like, what if we essentially created ads that look very real, like just with AI, and mid podcast like drop 2 or 3.
No, yeah, I think we should put them in a voice. Like, come have one of your crazy personalities.
He's like, you guys would be from like you just started your podcast. You guys are already sponsored. What the?
That's right.
Sponsored by Brondo.
Get some of that big Nexus money.
What's the Gatorade or the
Brondo?
This Brondo, yes,
it's got electrolytes.
Exactly. that actually would be great. 100 call enable if you want to
enable me.
Enable me. Yeah, I like that better. Thanks, Randy. If you want to join our podcast, oh, by the way, that's a fake number, so don't call or do, and then tell us. Yeah, and then throw a comment on one of the socials on who answered, because I would be curious to know.